Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are. Hosted by Desiree Duffy.
Today, we're talking about books that make an impact on the world. Now, that's the magical thing about books, right? I mean, throughout history, they've always been this conduit to spreading ideas and sharing stories, impacting humanity in every way. If you don't think books are important, well, then think again. A recent study just revealed that people are reading more books, no matter what you might have heard. In the UK, The Guardian reports that Nielsen BookScan recorded year-on-year book sale growth of £22 million. That translates to $28 million US. Now, in the United States, the number of independent bookstores is growing. It grew by 35% between 2009 and 2015, and sales of physical books has increased every year since 2013. And you know what? That makes us really happy. My guest today is Celeste Duckworth. She is from Vertical Life, and she is a huge supporter of books and authors and writers and the written word, and she actually hosts a show called A Taste of Ink, which I highly recommend you check out. Trust me, if you like books that make you, then you're going to love what Celeste does on her show. Celeste, my fellow bibliophile, it is so wonderful to have you on as a guest. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me, Desiree. This is going to be fun. So I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Of course, of course. I love your show, and so I'm absolutely honored that you're here joining me for mine. This is I just love it when things connect like this and we come together. We've worked on so many projects together over the last couple of years. Yeah.
Right, we have. Mm-hmm.
So thank you again. Now let's hit that big picture. How do you think books impact the world? They impact society. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, as a creative, and I would say that the way that books impact us is that the ability to have a piece of the future or the past or the presence through books. I think that authors are kind of like they're the modern griots of either giving us something to escape, giving us escapism, or giving us something to speculate on, thinking on, giving us something to look forward to in the future. And I think that, they're going to always be important. To give you a great example, I started doing A Taste of Ink because I'm an author as well, and someone gave me an opportunity to put my poetry out there in their magazine, and that's how A Taste of Ink came to life. But the greatest thing was that I've been doing some vocabulary with my daughter, and it's important. People don't realize how important to read it is. People will say, "Oh, I don't know if I want to read this book, or it takes too long," but it's such a wonderful thing, and the ability to read really enhances your vocabulary and more and a lot of things that you don't realize. So my granddaughter, who's 10, ran into the house one day and she says to me, "Grandmother, you just have to interview this lady." And I'm like, "Okay." And I was like, "Well, who is she?" She said, "She's an author, and she came to our school." What was so interesting with what she said is that she remembered all the statistics about children's authors, and she's like, "Oh, you just have to have her. This was so amazing." And I looked at her and was like, "Okay, I might have a little author growing up here, So definitely, and when you say that the statistics, I read some of that before as well, and I really think it's because books are also a way of escapism. They're also a way of being able to evaluate yourself a little more, have somebody look at you from another perspective. So that's why I think that they're beginning to be more popular. I will certainly say as much as I can be a movie or a TV, if I have a day, I will sit there and watch a show or binge watch. As much as I like that, I prefer books more. Mm-hmm. Okay, I prefer the whole story more than anything. And I've been known to see a program and then go get the book and read the book. So
yes,
I've been known to do that a lot. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, most definitely. So that's what I think. I think it's an increased awareness, and and everybody doesn't have money to go to college. Okay, there's so much that you can learn by a book, and I think that for those of us that can do that, that's what we reach for first.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that our society is coming to the point that as long as you have access to the internet, that's the key. That a college education is really just a piece of paper. It's just validation because you can find out so much online, and there's even some top level universities that are offering free classes online. So if you truly want to learn between the internet and reading books, it's at your fingertips like it's never been before in society.
It really has been. I would say, and I have to totally agree with you as just getting my degree. And the thing that's kind of like my pet peeve with a lot of the schools is that they haven't brought their classes and curriculums up. A lot of them haven't to what's going on today. And it's so important that if our kids are going to go to school, if you're going to go to school for the piece of paper, then when you get out of school, you should be able to know exactly, what the new technology is. You should be able to literally step into a job, but that's not really happening. And I think that's why you have such an influx of classes online. I think it's another reason why we have an influx of people buying books.
You know what I think is interesting too, Celeste, going along with what you're saying there, is my niece recently told me about how they don't use Word. She's in high school. They don't use Word. And I just thought, as a business person and somebody who uses a pretty basic program like Word all the time, that just struck me as being very odd, going along with what you were saying about how they're just not teaching and not using some of the technology in schools the way you think they would.
Mm-hmm. And that's, and that's true. I've spent a lot of time. In fact, we're getting ready to do some orientation classes for our interns that come in, because I realized that we were getting some interns in that didn't know how to do some basic things, even on the internet. And for us, it's like you don't want to spend, you have such a short time to have an intern. You don't have time to really do a big training program with them, okay? Because pretty much you need them to be able to have some basic understanding, get them to work, and then just have short little workshops, to help them along. But I see that, and I see some things with my granddaughter as well. And it's funny because we're a family of teachers, and my family, a family of teachers. And so I used to say to my daughter, don't take that in there and let your uncle see it, because he's going to make you go the extra 10 miles to do it right. So that's pretty much how we are here. We're like, so what can you do better? So do you need to learn Word? Should I teach you PowerPoint? What can we help you with here? So we always say in my family that the saying is, it's a hard family to be in. Okay, it's a hard family to be in. So I know it's but it's you're right. I mean, I don't know what has happened to education. And I don't know, one of our commitments at Vertical is to, we have 2 teen groups, and one of our commitments is to really, you can't do everything. So we decided, we're going to work on the aspect of broadcasting and media and communications with these teens that really have a desire to do this. So, you have job readiness. And then the other thing is that they're not really teaching them that there's a whole world out there, okay? Mm-hmm. There's a big world out there, and that's one of the things that I really try to talk to a lot of business people about. It's like, hey, how come you're not doing this? There's probably somebody over in Europe that wants your product, that wants your book, so why aren't you doing this? So, that's another aspect I'm doing when it comes to reading education, with vertical.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, so I do want to take a really deep dive and have you tell us all about Vertical Life and what's going on there. But then I also want to just talk about your granddaughter a little bit more, because you were talking about how she came to you with this author that you just had to interview. So now I'm dying to know, who was this amazing author that your granddaughter recommended that you...
Do you know what? I will have to send that to you, because I have that written down somewhere in my thing. In fact, because she made me write her name down and get the email. Mm-hmm. And she said, Grandma, when you have her on the show, please, let me know. So I will get that information to you. It was, she wrote a children's book. And it was really interesting. It was an African-American woman. Mm-hmm. And she wrote the book, when she wrote the book, she was talking about the disparity and the statistics in African-American children book writers. Mm. And I thought it was very, my granddaughter, I'm thinking, oh, my God, this really is good. I didn't know that. So that's what she was like, you have to have her on your show. And I was like, okay. And I said, I have to have her on the show. So I was... You know what? I just went and bought my new organizer for the year, and I said to myself, make sure you put that woman's name on there and get a date, because Jale is looking at it. It's funny because she was a couple of years before that, I was there for the summer, and she said, so, Grandmother, what do you do? I was like,
you're like, I do everything.
Yeah, I said, I have a magazine, and she's like, wow, that is so very cool. I said, yeah, now you're my favorite. You're my favorite granddaughter now. So, I have to get you that name.
Sure,
I have it written down in my phone. So I have to get you that name. Yeah, because, it's interesting. We really do a lot in books, but I know very few children's authors, and I was thinking, I said, in fact, I've had people ask me about publishing for children's books, and where I've helped a few people, but it's kind of like, that's interesting that we don't have more in our industry. I don't see more in our industry, so I definitely have to give you her name.
Absolutely.
She made an impact on that 11-year-old. So.
Well, and that's what I love about it, the fact that she made such a strong impact on your granddaughter. Mm-hmm. And then I also love that you are making such a strong impact on your granddaughter as a role model because of everything you're doing. And really, that's what it's all about, right? It's about our future, and it's about the next generations and encouraging them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
definitely.
Tell us about Vertical Life. So we know it's a magazine, and we know that you are the grandmaster of everything, and that you host a show called Taste of Ink. I love the fact that you are bringing in interns, and you're doing all of this, and you're helping to support others. So give us the big overview of what exactly Vertical Life is.
Well, Vertical Life started in 2009 with my fiance who was given an idea to start a magazine. He had been in 23 years of fashion, and he was retired, and he was a person that always encouraged people. He was a big encourager and motivator of women and of teens. And so he started this magazine, and he wanted it to be something that would reach out to the creative community, to people that were innovative, and print those stories. So when I took it over about 5 years ago, he's passed away now. When I took it over, we had just the magazine, but we had talked about a lot of things. I mean, my thing was like Vertical Life magazine, and it still is, will be the new life magazine of the world. And that was my desire. And then, we went from a Vertical magazine to Vertical radio. We went from the radio to having 2 sister magazines in the UK, we have a new radio platform that's actually in the UK that we're hoping to launch in the spring. And then we have, we have a digital marketing aspect because we were running into a lot of small businesses that didn't have a digital presence. And so we wanted to do something for those. And in fact, our programs, we have 4 of our programs that are very dear to us is A Taste of Ink Live. We created that to introduce authors all over the world to people. We had, and actually it's like anything that has to do with writing, that's what we talk about, because we also wanted to be a resource to new and up-and-coming writers. And that's why one of the questions I always ask different writers is I ask them to give us a little inspirational thing for anyone who's listening, and that's where that question came up from. We have Women on the Rise, which is actually a program that introduces women who have actually left corporate America, or they decided to pursue their passion, and we talk about the challenges of doing that. We have Vertical Virtual Passport that talks about travel, and we do a creative retreat every year. And then we have our 2 what I call social enterprises, which is She's More Network, which is teen girls, and Teen Vertical Media Camp, which is a media and broadcasting communication camp. Does workshops 4 times a year for teens that are interested in going into the media and broadcasting industry. And it's a more on-hands type program where we invite people in the industry to come and talk to the kids, talk about what they do, talk about some things that they'd be interested in getting started. So Vertical now is under the umbrella of Vertical Alliance, which, we had so much. And so we had to say, okay, let's look at this. It's really big. It's bigger than it was 5 years ago. It grew really fast. And that's when we started with interns, and so it's, now we're, and every time it's really interesting because every time I look at, well, what can we, scale down so we could scale up? And there's really nothing we can scale down because all of them are great programs. We've had authors who have gotten movie deals with their books. We have authors and that's really, I get a kick out of looking at Netflix and seeing the name of an author I interviewed who's either wrote something or they're consulting on something, and I get a real kick out of that. And we've had authors who have been picked up by big publishers. And so, I'm always just amazed at, those authors that were indie authors when I interviewed them. We've had women whose businesses have been funded by people that have heard the program and have, contacted them and funded them. We've had people that have been on the magazine and started doing web series that were really good web series, and now those people they're actually on TV, and it's so funny because it's like, I'm like, wow, I just, these are people that we met through Facebook, or someone said, hey, you need to interview this person, and we've had them, and then just to watch, I get a kick on, I'm on Facebook, not a lot, but when I go on there, I get a kick out of seeing people that I've interviewed or had, with A Taste of Ink or any of our other programs. I get a kick to see how far they've gone and what they're doing. So yeah, that's a special thing for me. So it's always, introducing the creative person, introducing the innovative person, showing the world what people are doing around the world. And when you tell those stories, what I say is that when you tell the stories, people can say, oh, so it didn't take a lot of money to start here. Or, okay, well, I can write a book. I have a book inside me. I want to write a book. There's no set way to do anything, You just have to have the desire to do it. So talking to these individuals on the program, I learn a lot, too. So when I hear someone say, it took me 10 years, it took me 45 years to write a book, or it took me this, and then all of a sudden, they're getting, book sales or whatever, that's actually pretty cool. So yeah, that's vertical right there. And vertical, the name vertical with a K, it came up because my fiance had said, vertical means living a no nonsense, no drama life that's full of supporting and encouraging people, and that's what our name is.
Oh,
So
I love that. And yes, Celeste, I love the fact that you have so many stories of authors and creatives who have, gone on to that success because, you are such a supporter and promoter. And I can see how that gives you a rush when somebody that you knew, like it's kind of like the old saying, well, I knew them when, and then you see them on
right.
Netflix or whatever. So, okay, I have to ask you this. Who is that hidden gem right now? Is there somebody you've maybe interviewed recently, or an indie author, or somebody where you're just like sitting there going, that's one to watch? Like, who should people be checking out right now that they might not have heard of yet?
Mark Wallace McGuire. Mark Wallace McGuire wrote a book called Alexandria Rising. It's actually a trilogy, Alexandria Rising, Alexandria Reborn, and Alexandria Redeemed. And if you are a person that likes those James Bond and a Indiana Jones mix. This is the person right here. And what I love about him is he came out of 23 years of journalism. Okay. He's written these great books, and actually the books have been, even for him, he's kind of like, I get a gas when people from around the world, someone gets the book and they, write me a thing. And really, it was interesting when I interviewed him because he said, really, the reason the second book came along and the third book came along is because people kept suggesting it when they were writing the reviews. And he said, then these other two books appeared. And now he has a new book called In Search of the Pale Prince, which I'm getting ready to read. He's very... it's funny because when I said to him, so where do you write? He says, wherever. So if I, go on my lunch break, I'll write. If I'm in a car and I pull over, I'll write. If I'm out somewhere and I'll write. He's such an inspiration to me too, Yeah. Because I'm like, in fact, let's see, this summer he started The Pale Prince, and within 4 months it was published, and I was like, man, you work. But I'm always fast. Like, man, that's fast.
Yes. That's super fast. Wow.
That is super fast. But great books, really great books. I'm really looking forward to his next book. Now, The Pale Prince, In Search of the Pale Prince, is actually more of a book for young adults. But I'm actually going to read it because I don't care. I'm the person that when you come over, I'll probably watching Beauty and the Beast. Okay, because I just.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
You know what? I love them. Okay, I love those shows. And being with my two granddaughters, I told my daughter, I said, well, it's finally. When you come home and you get to watch adult shows again, but you go back to the shows that the kids were watching, it's like, what does that say?
Right. So
that's it.
Let's talk about you, because you are a creative person, and as much as you support other authors and writers, can you tell us what you are working on, what you are writing?
Okay, well, I do have a book. I have actually what was interesting is that I started writing poetry really late. Everybody in my family has they're poets. My aunt was an author and a playwright. And so, but I wouldn't share my stuff. I'm like, I'm not sharing my stuff with you because you guys are hard critics, But I'm writing a book called The Lucy Project. It's already written. Actually, where I'm at right now is sending it to the editor. And I've been writing that I wrote it 10 years ago when I was in school, and it's kind of been sitting there, just, part of the whole creative thing that says, you question yourself and you get all these things. And that's part of the reason I like A Taste of Ink, because one of the things I've learned with that program is I've learned that there's no perfect way to do it at all. Okay. Mm-hmm. I've learned that I have the same anxieties as other writers. Mm-hmm. I've learned that, and I think that the thing that I learned that really helps is I learned that you're never perfect. Okay. You get to a place where you just push it out there. So I just made a pact with myself, and I said the book will be finished this month and it will go to the editor and I'm done, And then I have, it's so funny because, as an author, I have 4 other books that actually they're in the phase of being proof. But I wrote, when I finally came out and started writing, it was interesting. I started writing 10 years ago, but I'm the kid that when I grew up, I had stories in my head. Okay. My mom bought me a set of classics that were, O. Henry, Hans Christian Andersen, Grimm's Brothers, Jules Verne. So I had those classics that I read over and over again. I still have some of those encyclopedias that my mother bought me. And so I had these stories always in my head. I'm a huge mythology buff. Mm-hmm. And so I would make up stories like I know my character's name, who he likes, who he doesn't like. I mean, a whole story from beginning to end. It was in my head, okay, and that's probably why I missed out on some math stuff when I was taking math, okay, because I'm like, I'm doing math this time. I'm like, I don't remember that part of it. But anyway, so I have these books, and so now this year for me I call it the year of intention, because not only with Vertical, I'm one of those people. If you come to me and you say need help, I will drop everything to help you. Okay, and I've done that before. I've helped a lot of people, and I haven't really pushed myself as much as I could. So this year, the desire started getting really strong last year that you need to get more of your writing out there, because you really have a lot of writing. You really have something to say. And, it's time for you to get it out there. So I've really been pushing myself to get this book out here and to get my other books, out of the computer into people's hands. So that's, my year of intention is part of the intention is to, and this is funny. This is a part that I always counsel other people on. That part of you that's inside of you that's saying, hey, okay, I'm important too. That part of you, that's the real you, that when you're sitting alone and saying, you know what, you could be doing this, you could be doing this. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. So now I'm pulling you out, It's okay to be Celeste the publisher, but now I have to deal with Celeste the writer. Mm-hmm. And so that's what this year is all about, getting those books out. But definitely A Taste of Ink has helped me. Like I said, it's every question I could possibly ask as an author. I have learned something from every author that I have talked to.
And, I love that, because you're such a nurturer. And I love the fact that because we need to do that, right? We all need to take a step back and focus on our own things. So you've given so much, and I think you absolutely deserve and need to, focus on your writing. Yes. You can do both. You can do both.
Oh, yeah.
It's a matter of just shifting your focus a little bit and making sure that you are a priority too.
Oh, that's very, very true, very true. And actually, I tell you, the whole process of being an entrepreneur, you learn so much. And it was funny because, and I always say that God shows me all these things about myself, but I was feeling overwhelmed one time, and I said, wait a minute, why are you feeling overwhelmed? And I said, how many hours are there in a day? How many hours are there in a month? And then I thought to myself, okay, what happened to some of them hours? Because I don't remember you working all them hours. So now I'm like, I have a huge calendar on my wall, and I keep my organizer with me, and I said to myself, look, out of 700 and something hours in a month, you can definitely take 40 of those hours for yourself, So,
yes,
so I write so I write myself in my calendar. I write myself in for my days off. I write myself in for my writing days. Now, it doesn't mean I always write on them days, because sometimes it's a writing day and I'm just sitting here for almost 4 hours looking at the wall, like.
But you're still writing. You're thinking. You're planning and plotting.
I'm still thinking. Yes. And I say to myself, whatever you do not work on vertical. You work on. You can do anything, but you cannot work on vertical on that day. So So I'm getting better at that. So
wonderful.
hopefully, I'm hoping that I get it out. But like I said, it's if I could say to all the authors who I've ever interviewed and talked to, just thank you. I'm so appreciative of what I've learned from you, and I want more. I want more people to hear what you have to tell them.
Celeste, you are so darn fabulous. Thank you so much for being on the show today and spreading that message.
You're
I absolutely
welcome.
love it.
You're welcome.
And really quick, before we go here, can you let people know where they can find Vertical Life, or where they can find the magazine and A Taste of Ink? Where can they go?
Well, Vertical Life is you can find it at Vertical Life Magazine. It's VERTIKAL, lifemagazine.com. You can find us on Facebook. There's A Taste of Ink Live is on Facebook. Women on the Rise is on Facebook. You can go to those pages. If you want to contact me about doing an interview about your book, contact me by all means, and we'll talk about what's available to be on the radio or to be in the magazine, most definitely. And this year we're hoping to we've already started putting resources on A Taste of Ink Live. So you're going to find not only authors, you're going to find articles on anything that has to do with writing. Anything that has to do with writing retreats, anything that has to do with writing resources, you'll be looking at that on on A Taste of Ink Live at Facebook.
I love it. Thank you again so much, Celeste. This has been such a pleasure having you on the show. And you can find out more about the Books That Make You website on our website. It's booksthatmakeyou.com, really easy to find. And you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Until next time, enjoy all the books that make you who you are.
The executive producer for Books That Make You is Desiree Duffy. Produced and sound mastered by Phil Giangrande. Engineering by Dave Nabox. Social media and promotion by Bree Sweeter. For more, visit booksthatmakeyou.com.